There are very few quarterbacks in the NFL who have experienced the kind of turbulence that Baker Mayfield has endured. Right now, he and the Bucs are surging towards a possible NFC Championship game appearance, but the journey to get there has been far from easy. From being the first overall pick to being discarded multiple times by different teams, he has truly felt the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. These various bumps along the road have made him who he is today though, and the finished product looks very similar to what the Cleveland Browns were hoping he would turn into when they selected him with the first overall pick in the 2018 NFL Draft. From being on the brink of being a bust for the Cleveland Browns to an improbable comeback on the Rams, and now being the franchise quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this is the rise, fall, and rise again of Baker Mayfield. Are you looking for a new book this football season? BetUS is the answer. They have the fastest and easiest payouts in the industry, along with 24/7 personalized service 365 days a year. Not only that, but they have live wagering on all major games, so if you see something mid-game and want to make a wager on it, you can. And the best part is you get 10% back on your net losses twice a year. And now look, you guys knew I had to come through with you guys for a promo code, so make sure that you guys are using code YouTube150 for a nice 150% deposit bonus on up to $2,000. That's right, we were doing 125%, but we said screw that, we're giving you guys 150% instead. Again, that is promo code YouTube150 for a 150% deposit bonus on up to $2,000. Again, thank you to BetUS for sponsoring today's video, but for now, let's hop back into it. Baker Mayfield's time in the NFL has been far from smooth sailing, so it's fitting that his journey to the pros was anything but straightforward as well. Despite thriving as a high school quarterback, Baker was ignored by top-tier college programs. The only scholarship offer made available to him came from minor schools such as Florida Atlantic, which did little to excite May, who had much higher ambitions. The lack of any serious offers might have been a concern to most, but for Baker, all it did was motivate him more. This was the chip on his shoulder that he needed to kick himself into action and make all of those colleges pay. So instead of settling for guaranteed snaps at a lower level, Baker decided to bet on himself and earn his spot as a walk-on at Texas Tech. And look, the odds were completely stacked against him, but that did little to slow Baker down, with him earning the starting role before the season had even begun. He was also helped out by an injury to the projected starter Michael Brewer, but you don't become the first walk-on true freshman quarterback to start an FBS season opener without impressing the coaching staff in practice. And in that first game, he rewarded coaches for their faith by completing 43 passes for 413 yards and 4 touchdowns in his debut against SMU. It was a fantastic way to kick off his college career. And things got even better 1 week later when the Texas Tech Raiders landed 61 points on the heads of Stephen F. Austin. In just 2 weeks, Mayfield had thrown for 780 yards and 7 touchdowns, adding a useful 82 yards and 1 more score on the ground. And to put this in perspective of how impressive this was, Texas Tech's last true freshman could only muster up 755 yards across 10 games. And now yes, the competition that Baker was playing against wasn't the absolute best, but remember, this is a walk-on true freshman that was finally getting his first taste of college football. Red Raider fans had been introduced to Baker Mayfield and they wanted to see more. While Baker did finish out the year totaling 2,315 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, some unwanted drama prevented Red Raider fans from enjoying Baker's play the following season. Having played well in the starting role all year long and led the team to a winning record, Mayfield was shocked and annoyed to find out there would still be no scholarship offer for him from Texas Tech. It was like high school all over again for him, who was once again being undervalued and underestimated. And with Texas Tech no longer in his good books, Baker set out to find another destination to fulfill his dream. He would once again have to prove himself in a new location and earn his opportunity. His target was the University of Oklahoma, who were very happy to have him, but would have to wait some time before seeing him in action. As a consequence of his transfer, Mayfield was found to be ineligible to play during the 2014 campaign due to transfer rules. When his time finally came though, Mayfield was revved up and ready to hit the ground running. He opened up with a 388-yard, 3-touchdown performance against Akron before leading Oklahoma to a thrilling overtime victory against Tennessee, in which he threw another 3 touchdowns. A stunning 572 total yards, 6-touchdown performance then came against Tulsa, consisting of 4 passing touchdowns and 2 on the ground. He finished up the regular season with 3,389 yards, 35 touchdowns, and just 5 interceptions, completing a very healthy 68.6% of his passes, but that wasn't all. He also took 131 carries for 420 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground, proving himself as a dual threat weapon. In doing so, he led the Sooners to an 11-2 record and a high ranking of 3rd. The reward was a college football playoff semi-final day with the Clemson Tigers. However, it was not one the Sooners particularly enjoyed. Clemson eased to a 37-17 victory, and despite passing for 311 yards and a touchdown, Mayfield's 2 interceptions proved costly. There would be no playoff glory, but it was a good season for Mayfield. He had thrived in his first season as an Oklahoma Sooner, and there was far more good play right around the corner. In the 2016 season, we really saw Baker Mayfield have a lot of growth as a player, but it was nothing like what the fans were treated to in the 2017 campaign. In his 3rd and final season as a Sooner, Mayfield passed for 4,627 yards and 43 touchdowns, completing 70% of his passes and throwing just 6 interceptions. It was an absolutely insane season from Mayfield, who was at the peak of all of his powers all year long. He put on a show every single week, but nothing came close to his ridiculous effort against Oklahoma State, in which he threw for a school record 598 yards and 5 touchdowns. Unfortunately, another playoff semifinal defeat, this time to Georgia in overtime. It denied Baker the national title that he so well deserved and was trying to get. Still, he was awarded a pretty good consolation prize when he was named the winner of the Heisman Trophy for the 2017 season. He had achieved almost everything there was to achieve in the college game, and the next step was the transition to the NFL. The journey up to this point wasn't easy for Baker Mayfield, but time and time again, he continued to back himself, and it continued to pay off. And despite taking some pretty big risks along the way, they paid off big time and led to Baker hearing his name called during the 2018 NFL Draft.
The Cleveland Browns select Baker Mayfield.
Wow.
Quarterback, Oklahoma.
It is.
He had been taken first overall and would be heading to Cleveland, where he would feel the pressure of attempting to deliver their first winning season in over 10 years. Tyrod Taylor was the man tasked with being the bridge quarterback until Baker was ready, but things went a little off script in week 3 against the New York Jets. You see, with an 0-2 Cleveland team trailing the Jets by 14 points, there had never been more need for a spark. And following a Tyrod Taylor injury in the second quarter, Mayfield finally got his chance. And what followed was far better than what any Browns fan could have imagined. Baker rallied the team, completing 73.9% of his passes for 201 yards, calmly moving the offense and leading a remarkable comeback. He entered the field with a 14-point deficit and left it with a stellar debut victory, thanks to a 21-17 score in favor of his Browns. It was a monumental day for the Browns, as they could hardly believe that the first quarterback to come off the bench in his debut would throw for over 200 yards and lead the team to its first winning season since 1961 was their own. They truly believed that their savior had arrived, and nothing that happened throughout the remainder of Mayfield's rookie season put them off that belief. He finished up with an impressive 3,725 passing yards, and his 27 touchdowns broke the previous NFL record held by both Peyton Manning and Russell Wilson. While he didn't do quite enough to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year award, he did land on the top 100 list at spot 50. The vibes were good in Cleveland. The 2019 season would be Baker's first full year in charge. And while his passing yardage increased slightly to 3,827, his touchdowns decreased to 22, and his interceptions were concerningly high at 21. His slightly underwhelming 2019 campaign certainly put a slight dent in Cleveland fans' optimism, but there were no calls for concern just yet. Nevertheless, now in his 3rd season, the pressure was on, and what many considered to be Cleveland's best roster in decades, Mayfield needed to hold up his end of the bargain and deliver some wins. And in true Baker fashion, he did just that. He was at his brilliant best in 2020, helping the Browns reach a 5-2 record after 7 games. This included a particularly satisfying 37-34 win over the division rival Cincinnati Bengals, in which Baker threw 5 touchdowns. He finished up the regular season with 3,563 yards, 26 touchdowns, and just 8 interceptions. It was without a doubt the best football of his career, elevating the team to an 11-5 record in their first playoff appearance since 2002. Getting to the playoffs was one thing, though, and you have to go all the way back to 1994 to find the Cleveland Browns' last playoff win, so there was no time for celebrating just yet. The fans desperately wanted to celebrate a playoff victory, and Baker could become a legend by delivering them one. The team they would face on the big stage was another very familiar foe, the Pittsburgh Steelers. To make matters worse, the Browns would have to beat them on their own turf. However, the first overall pick was up to the challenge, passing for 263 yards and 3 touchdowns en route to a stunning 48-37 victory. Baker Mayfield had done it. He was a hero, giving the city of Cleveland its first playoff victory in over 2 decades. Unfortunately, the glorious season would come to an end 1 week later in Kansas City, and the hangover was pretty painful. In 2021, Baker Mayfield's form flipped again, and the quarterback that had just given the fanbase its biggest cause for celebration in decades was nowhere to be seen. An early injury to his shoulder was a big reason for this, but a final stat line of 3,010 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions left a sour taste in the mouth. Mayfield had shown flashes of quality as a Brown, but lacked the consistency needed to sustain a high level of success. With the front office believing they were on the right path to Super Bowl glory, they made a controversial trade for Deshaun Watson, who they believed would be the missing piece to put them over the edge. This made Baker the odd man out, leading him to request a trade which the Browns gladly granted. He was sent to the Carolina Panthers for a 5th-round pick, which reflected how far his stock had fallen. As it turns out, the Panthers ended up feeling like they overpaid, with Mayfield stinking up the joint and leading the team to a shocking 1-6 record. This stretch of 7 games featured 6 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, promoting the Panthers to cut their losses and discard Mayfield halfway through the season. Just 5 years after being drafted first overall, Mayfield was on the street, cut by a team that didn't even want him as their backup. And I mean, honestly, it doesn't get much lower than that. And people even began wondering, was this the end of Baker Mayfield? And simply put, not just yet. The Rams came calling as they were experiencing some quarterback issues of their own. And 3 days after signing with the team, Baker found himself in the unlikely position of taking live snaps with the game on the line. After being subbed in for a struggling John Wolford against the Las Vegas Raiders, Mayfield ended up delivering a truly remarkable 98-yard game-winning drive with just 1 minute and 45 seconds left on the clock. He had barely had a minute to consume the playbook, but that didn't stop Baker from digging deep and finding a way to win on the big stage. That, my friends, is how you pick yourself up from rock bottom. It is truly impossible to underestimate how much that single drive meant to Baker Mayfield's career. Not only did it allow him to get a couple more starts with the Rams, but it had single-handedly rescued his perception around the league. Matthew Stafford's return from injury for the 2023 season meant that there wasn't space for him in LA, but he didn't have to wait long to get a call from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who were in need of a quarterback after Tom Brady's retirement. Just like in his early college days, there was no guarantee of a starting role in Tampa Bay. He would have to earn his right to play, beating out Kyle Trask. And look, he did it at Texas Tech, he did it at Oklahoma, and in 2023, he did it in Tampa Bay. But this time, he received the ultimate prize for his work. Having established himself as the Buccaneers' starting quarterback, Baker Mayfield became a new man. He played with newfound confidence in a system that was perfectly built to support him. Dave Canales put him in positions to succeed, and Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Rachaad White helped him move the ball better than he had ever done before. The result was a first season with over 4,000 passing yards, corralling a career-high 4,044 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. The Buccaneers had entered the 2023 campaign with expectations of a rebuild on the horizon, and many believed that Baker wouldn't make it to the end of the year. But against all the odds, Baker delivered the goods, winning 9 games and earning the Bucs a playoff spot. Then, when everybody underestimated Baker and the Bucs again, they landed a magnificent playoff victory against the Eagles. Baker had looked like the guy the Browns wanted when they selected him with the first overall pick in 2018. And the reward for him was his first significant NFL contract. In March 2024, he put pen to paper, securing himself $100 million across the next 3 years. And in a world where quarterback contracts have gone through the roof, he is proving to be worth every penny and more. The Bucs have been red hot to start the season, and Baker has played as well as any quarterback in the league. He threw 4 beautiful touchdown passes while completing 80% of his passes in week 1 against Washington before scoring a passing and a rushing touchdown in a week 2 victory over the Lions, who only narrowly lost the NFC Championship game last year. Right now, the Bucs look in a great spot to win their 4th division title in a row. And with the way Mayfield is playing, I think they honestly might be able to go a lot further. Last year, they toppled the Eagles to get 1 game away from the conference championship. And this year, they have already taken revenge on the team that beat them to it. And they did it without Antonio Winfield Jr. So watch out, NFC contenders. The Bucs are not messing around this year. But I want to know what you guys think. How good are the Bucs this year? How good is Baker Mayfield going to be this year? Honestly, his story is incredible. To see him just, as I told you guys in this video, just the rise, fall, and rise again of him. Honestly, it couldn't happen to a better guy. He seems like an awesome football guy. He seems like a down-to-earth guy that should deserve every penny of his $100 million contract, and I'm sure is going to enjoy it. But as always, if you guys did enjoy these types of video, make sure that you guys like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me to know to keep making more of these videos, as well as to keep pushing all the content for you guys. We are on the way to 50K. That is my goal by the end of the NFL season, if not more. And as always, I will catch you guys in the next one.